everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another card video. Actually, this is a 5-card video because we're looking into the new Spellbinders card kit of the month for the month of April. That's called Weekend Fun. And I'm creating 5 different cards to sharing with you to show you the versatility of this kit. And I had so many ideas that I think this video will take hours if I was able to capture on camera all the cards that you can create with this kit. So before we look into the card kit, into the cards, we're gonna look into the card kit and let's see everything that's included in it. So this is the card kit. It comes in this pretty box. You open it and everything is nice and stored there. So we have die cut elements, chipboard stickers, stamp set of dies, and there is a little idea sheet. So the dice coordinate, few of the dice coordinate with the stamp set. So I found that to be very useful. This is like idea sheet with 3 ideas. Those are 3D stickers. Then we have a paper pad, 6x6 paper pad, and I really love the patterns this month. They're very artsy and very springy, and there are a lot of flowers and pretty colors. We have a set of note cards and envelopes. We have some adhesive and dimensionals, little bottle of sequins, and then we have some cardstock. And I do love also the colors of the cardstock this month. We have navy, lavender, pink, white, gold, and kind of very pale yellow-orange. Like there are different shades of pink as well. So I'm going to speed up a little bit here so we can see all the elements that, I apologize, I had to readjust the phone. So we're looking at all the die cut elements that included in the kit. So there are a lot of different, like for different occasions, and we have flowers, butterflies, birds, hearts, oranges, peaches, a lot of sentiments, which I really like, and they have also gold foiling on them as well. There's a little pretty dress, and there's some food items like a French press coffee pot. There are pancakes, they're like toast, and we have a typewriter also somewhere there. They're like the little dresses. They're a little dog, and little cassette, if anyone remembers though. We have the bees, I forget, not the nest, but I forget what's the name it is. So those are the 3D elements here, and we have the stamp set. So it's focused around bees, the chipboard elements. Those are chipboard stickers. Let's take a quick look at the paper pad, beehive. That was the bird's nest, the bee's nest. So here are the dies. So we have the little hexagons. I'm really happy. I really love hexagons. They coordinate with the stamp set, so you can stamp and die cut, or you can just die cut on their own. I'll use both in this video. So and we have a die cut for the little bee as well. So let's get started. I'm gonna go very quickly because we are sharing 5 cards, and they're not very kind of very complicated, so we're gonna move pretty quick here. I'm using alcohol marker friendly ink pad, and I'm stamping the beehive twice. I'm using my MISTI tool. I'm just gonna use one of those for one of my cards and save the rest for the second one for additional card. I always like to stamp multiples because if I mess up one, I always have a second one instead of going back to my MISTI and inking my stamp again and stamping and putting everything again back where it belongs. So next we're gonna stamp the bee and the outline hexagon. Again, I'm using black ink, and then we're gonna use the other solid hexagons, and I'm using yellow, like butter yellow ink. I'm gonna stamp those multiple times. So I'm repeating the process over stamping a couple times so I have nice impression. I have nice solid black and nice coverage of the yellow. So here I tried to stamp in the middle there, and my MISTI wasn't clean, the door of the MISTI, so I transferred some black ink onto the bee. So next, I stamped a bunch of those off camera as well. I'm just pulling some of the cardstock, and we're gonna die cut all the bees and the hexagons. Also, we're gonna die cut that silhouette image, sentiment, and bunch of flowers, and the frame. So by magic of YouTube, everything is die cut. So let's start creating now. So I pull out one of the bees that's stamped and we die cut, and we're gonna use the beehive. Now I'm just trying to determine which sentiment I would like to use. But before I go onto the sentiment, I'm gonna pick out a few colors of my alcohol-based markers. Here I'm using Copic markers, but you can use anything of any coloring medium of your choice. Just make sure that you use appropriate paper. If you're using watercolors, you will want to use watercolor paper. So I'm going with black and yellow, kind of to match the bee. The beehive usually it's kind of brownish, so I just decided to do the same pattern as the bees are. So I'm doing very basic color blending here. I started with black, and then I'm using the cool grays, the darker cool grays, to do those black stripes onto the beehive. And at the end I'm blending with the lightest gray, cool gray that I'm using, which was C6. Next I'm gonna color in the flowers. I'm using pink, red, purple, and blues. So if you can see here, I'm moving quickly. I'm doing just basic not ink blending, but marker blending, color blending. So I'm starting with the darkest, I'm using 3 shades of each color. Then I'm doing with the medium, and then I'm using the lightest one. Next we're going to finish coloring the beehive. Now I'm going with the oranges, like yellow orange. And repeating the same, doing the basic blending with 3 colors. So next we'll just color the bee. This one went pretty quick because there are only a couple stripes, and we have the wings. For the wings I use very pale blue-green. So now it's time to stamp. So I'm just pulling out some stamps to see how it will look onto the panel. I'm just setting those there, see how it looks, and I just wanted to have something a little bit bolder. So I decided to use the large bee stamp, and also I am stamping the trail for the bee. And then I'm taking some black cardstock. I'm gonna stamp the rest of the sentiment onto black cardstock using VersaFine ink, and then I will emboss it in white. I apologize. So I'm stamping that a couple times, since I can do that because I'm using my MISTI tool to have nice coverage of that ink, because it's really hard to see VersaFine ink, especially if it's on black cardstock. So now that I heat set that one, I can trim this to size to have a little strip. And next I'm trimming the panel down to 4 by 5 1/4, trying to see where I'm gonna put that sentiment, and I decided to trim the ends a little bit more. Now we can go on to assembling our card. I'm gonna use some foam squares to adhere the sentiment. Also I'll do foam squares for the bee. And then I decided to add some shimmer pen onto the wings. To finish off the card, I'm using fun foam to adhere in the back of the panel, and then I'm adhering it to a white note card. So that's our first card. Let's move to the second card. We're gonna do some similar approach, but here I'm using the hexagons. I'm using the hexagons that were directly die cut, not the Stampin' die cut. I'm coloring them like the white ones. I die cut bunch of from white. I'm coloring them with blue alcohol based marker. And then the one that I have like the pale yellow orange, I decided to color them with alcohol marker, kind of darker marker like we did with the beehive in the previous card. So I'm just positioning them first to see where I want them to be, and now I'm coloring those hexagons. I decided to use 3 of those, 3 of each color that I have. I'm using gold, blue, black, and the orange. I decided to use one of the die cut elements, and I decided to use the beautiful, and then I will stamp have A, will have beautiful, and then stamp day. So before I go into stamping, I decided that it's time to color the bee, the second bee. I'm using the same colors as the previous card. So now we have almost everything ready. I'm just adding some little details onto the hexagons with white gel pen. And some shimmer pen onto the wings of the butterfly. I'm trimming down the panel to 4 by 5 1/4. And now we can start assembling our card. I'm starting with stamping the sentiment, the day, and have A. And then we can start adhering the hexagons. So for the hexagons, I'm using just liquid adhesive. For some of them I'm using thin foam squares, and for some of them I'm using thicker foam squares. So this gives us different dimension of those and a little bit more interest. Some are raised more, some are flat with the panels, some are raised like somewhere in between. So it kind of creates pretty fun texture. So position them where I want it to be. So now I'm going back and I'm adhering all of those little hexagons. So you can see here how I alternate between foam squares and there was my head. I apologize, I had to see to make sure that I adhere the little hexagons straight. So I have the hexagons. Next, I decided to stamp that trail for the bee. I'm using again black ink. Adhere the bee again using foam squares. And then I'm using thin foam tape to adhere the sentiment. So I'll use the same approach as the previous card, and I'm creating here a top folding note card. And I'm going to adhere the panel using foam onto the note card. So we have 2 cards created. We're moving to the 3rd card, and this one is pretty simple. I'm using one of the die cut butterflies that came in the kit and some pattern paper. I'm just trying to determine which one, and I think this one was like my favorite, kind of with the paint swooshes there. So I'm going to use that one. I'm going to use the die cut sentiment celebrate that that I made, that I die cut using the dies that come in the kit. So I'm trying to see whether gold or black. So I decided to go with the gold. So we're going to create a kind of angled card. This front panel will be under an angle. I'm trying to see where to put that celebrate to make sure that it fits. Then I'm looking at, I put the panel on top of my note card and decided to trim a little bit off the top. Next I'm creating a note card. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to cut a piece of that pattern paper and I'm going to adhere it onto the bottom of that note card. So when we put that front panel, the one under angle, we'll be able to see the pattern paper peeking through. So I'm just here trying to see if I can add something else or just leave it as it is. I didn't really like the sequins because almost everything is pink, so the green kind of stood out a little too much, so I decided to go without the sequins. I'm adhering the celebrate die cut I'm just seeing how it's going to look with the birds, so I decided to stick with the butterfly. So now that I have pretty much the final design, I'm adhering everything together. And I will use fun foam to adhere that angled piece on top of the note card. Here I'm just cutting the ends, whatever is sticking out, to make sure that everything is nice and straight and lined up. So I'm just trimming a piece of fun foam to adhere in back of that panel, and I'm using liquid glue to adhere it to it. So lining that up, and then we're left to adhere that butterfly, and just on the bottom of the wings I'm adding the foam adhesive, and on the top that goes onto that panel, the white panel, I'm using liquid adhesive. So now let's move to the third card. I decided to use this silhouette and one of the die cut frames. I die cut it from the gold cardstock that comes in the kit. I'm just trying to pick out a pattern paper that I think will look nice, that's not too busy and still colorful. So I decided to go with this ombre pattern, and I cut piece measuring 4 by 5 1/4. I'm adhering it on top of a coordinating size white cardstock piece. Next I will adhere the frame and then add the silhouette die cut. I'm just using liquid adhesive to adhere the frame. I'm using strong liquid adhesive with precision tip. And then for the silhouette, I'm using some foam squares. Adhering that on top. And again, as we approach the other 3 cards we just made, I'm using some fun foam and top folding note card to finish up my card. So I'm just adding that fun foam, adhering on the back, and then adhering to the note card. So I mentioned we're going to make 5 cards, so let's move. This is the last card we're making today. And I have so many other ideas that I'll share with you during the month. Most likely on my blog. So I'm trimming that down to 3 1/4. And then I cut a strip of one of the patterns in the 6x6 paper pack. And I'm going to adhere that pattern to the right side, right edge of the top folding note card. Just trimming off the excess there. Decided to do it with the paper trimmer to make sure that it's nice and straight. I'm positioning the bees and see which of the pink cardstock that comes in the kit coordinates the most with those bees. So I decided to cut a thin strip and adhere it behind that white layer, and then add the bees and the sentiment from the chipboard stickers. So before we go into adhering those, I'm adding some fun foam on back of that panel, adhering to my card base, and then adding the bees and the sentiment. So I'm positioning first the sentiment, making sure that it's straight, and next I'm using foam squares to adhere the little bees, and then I will use the thin foam squares for one of them and the thicker one, or the regular thickness one, for the other bee, again to create a little bit more dimension. So here are all the 5 cards that we made today. So I hope that this video inspired you to sit down and create and see how many more ideas you can come up with using this kit. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to click on the subscribe now button so you're updated for new videos I post and for more ideas and inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye!